My internet connection, the phone's struggling, baby's crying. I'm in. Sorry, everybody. We're here.
Hey,
how's it
all
going?
Good, Zach. How are you doing, my man?
I'm good. How's everyone going?
Living the life up here, man. It's cold. It's freezing up here compared to where you're at.
Yeah, that's what I was told. I've been talking to Cody and a few of my friends up in Minnesota. Well, just Cody and Brian, but apparently it's not the warmest. Here it was 75 degrees. I have a t-shirt on. I had shorts on when I was going for a walk, so we're enjoying life down here in Houston.
Definitely jealous. Although it was like 50 here today, so that was close to summer for us.
Listen, you can't complain too much here in winter, but apparently I know when we played Minnesota, I remember I came out for the second half in short sleeves because I was like, man, I'm so tough. And I immediately regretted it. And I was like, man, I should have worn a long sleeve. I'm looking at Molino and he's got gloves, a hat, he's got a scarf. I don't even know how he was all dolled up, but it was pretty cool.
Yeah, we were actually, really kind of glad we weren't ended up hosting MLS Cup at all this weekend, because that would have been a fun one for everyone. Because it's supposed to snow Friday and Saturday, so it would have been a fun MLS Cup final if we ended up hosting. So
it would have been fantastic, like Kansas City a few years ago.
Oh, yeah, that or that the U.S. game when it snowed, that snow game.
That's right. I played in the so the beginning of 2019. I played in the coldest ever game in MLS history, and it snowed about 6 inches in Colorado, same field and everything like that. It was tight. People had tights, hats, gloves. Eventually you had to start chipping the ball because you couldn't even roll. We had the orange ball and everything like that.
Can't
so
roll it.
Cool.
Yeah, we're quite used to doing that here. That's for sure.
That's so
especially
cool.
in the spring, especially in the springtime when the snow is still on the ground.
That's so cool.
So, I'll kind of start the interview process here with you a little bit and just kind of break things down so we can keep things moving along, and then we can get to some of the kids for some of their questions as well. So the first things first, like when you're a kid, you grew up in Pennsylvania, correct?
Mm-hmm.
Right. So how would you describe the youth area in Pennsylvania as far as the whole youth system?
I would say that it's come a long way. There's really only one team growing up, and that was FC Delco. And that team was in Philadelphia, which was about an hour and a half drive from where I was at. And originally, if you didn't play for that one really cool team, so let's say Minnesota, if you didn't play for Minnesota United, yeah, it was looked at as a disadvantage. But there was a lot of good kids growing up in the area. The most famous one nowadays that grew up for the club that I played for is Christian Pulisic, who grew up in Lancaster County in Amish country. And neither Christian or I or a few of the guys who play in MLS wanted to travel all the way to Philadelphia. So we eventually decided that we got with a group of our friends and tried to basically train at a local club and get the best guys possible to try to challenge that group, because not everybody can make the one team in Philly. Not everybody has the money to travel. Not everybody has the resources that some of those kids do. And my family didn't have that growing up. But we were lucky enough to have some really good coaches that gave us the opportunity to compete against those kids and compete against those big teams. And at times, I think there's a little bit of an advantage to not necessarily play for the really prestigious team. So in Pennsylvania, I guess that would be the Union team now. I think Delco and them have combined. But I think there's a little bit of an advantage not to necessarily play for them, because you get the chance to play against those kids and really challenge yourself.
Okay, very cool. And then is it something where even as a young kid, like that's what you kind of strove for, was trying to be a professional player, or was it something you just enjoyed playing soccer and just happened to kind of come along your way?
I actually wanted to play professional basketball for a long time. I grew up watching Allen Iverson, and Allen Iverson was the coolest guy in the world for me. And I eventually had to choose between basketball and soccer. And I was on the B team for basketball, and I was on the national team for soccer. And I really wanted to choose basketball, but I was like, maybe we should go with soccer on this one. And I think it's worked out pretty well.
B-squad national team. Yeah.
I think it's worked out pretty well.
Like you chose the right way. Yeah, I'd say so. I know I'm the same way. I mean, I'm a year older than you. So it was AI was the man growing up. I remember showing up to basketball. I was the same way. I showed up to basketball with the finger things, finger guards, the whole arm sleeve, all that stuff. It was AI was the man. enough sweatbands to cover the body, basically.
Love it.
So as far as getting into the youth national team, so how would you went about getting like noticed for that versus being like one of those things where it's, realistically you're trying out, but you're playing your club and you're going that route. And so how did the national team end up kind of falling into your plate?
So I don't know if any of the young kids on here know about ODP. I know you definitely do.
Yep.
But ODP was essentially a program where instead of all the club teams in a certain part of the state or the whole state, depending on how big, would drive to a certain area and have a tryout to be the best kids in the state. So let's say you cut Michigan in half, or Minnesota in half. There's North Minnesota and South Minnesota. I don't know how it's done. But in Pennsylvania, it was East and West. And we had all of Eastern Pennsylvania, all the kids from basically Harrisburg over, all the Philly clubs, all drove to one central spot to have a giant tryout. So then eventually all the best kids were picked to be 20 kids. So the best 20 kids in Eastern Pennsylvania and Western PA. And then eventually there used to be a tryout where all the kids from, someone said he made that. Good, that's cool. So then eventually there's different things where you have all the kids from Eastern PA and Western PA, and then Western New York and Eastern New York, and then Minnesota or Maine, and basically all the regions were separated, right? So then eventually you try out for the state team, then you make the regional team, and then eventually the regional team, they pick the top 7, 8, 10 kids from 1, 2, 3, and 4, and that makes up 20, 30, 40 player national team. And that's kind of what started for me, and that's how I came into being. But I know that that's not the case for things now. There's the Academy League, and that's very different. And that's, you have Minnesota as a team, and Dynamo has a club, and it's a lot different now. So for me, that's how I got into being with the national team and things like that. But I eventually played in the first ever year of the Academy League, and I think you might have as well. And it's really dating us, but I played in the first ever year for the Academy League in 2008. And that was a really cool experience because we had a national team coach at every single one of our games, watching and scouting. And that kind of helped me progress for when I got older.
Okay, very cool. Would you say that the national team kind of helped open doors for you as far as like college goes, or do you think that was more your club aspect that was the one that kind of helped get you those college looks? So I know you went to Akron, you were, you played with the Shattuck boys of Teal and Bagby, and so that comes. We have actually one of the coaches I work closely with here at St. Croix is a former Shattuck coach, so it's one of those things where it kind of all comes kind of full circle here.
Yeah, of course.
So would you say club kind of helped you with more like choose that pathway to college, or was it more like another fact that you just were playing on the national team, so college just kind of came just knocking?
Yeah, I would say it's a little bit honestly of both. And I know many guys who I play in, and I'll say this, I'll lead off into, I was a product of the system. So I played U14 to U23 national team the whole entire way. And I know guys that played U14 and 15 that were the best players and never made it past 17. And I know guys that never played 14 to 18 and now they're playing on television with the full national team. And it's pretty cool to kind of see that progression. And I was, really lucky to play for the national team for a bunch of years. That really helped me get to college, but it was also club because I played the Academy League for 2 seasons. And I remember I always had a coach watching those games. And I know that those games regularly had people, and I didn't play for the Philadelphia Union Academy team. I didn't play for those great teams, but I was still in the league, and I had really, and I was, lucky enough to have those coaches be at those games. I have a dog, by the way, whoever says what's up, who's making a note, but I have 2 pups, but so it was a little bit of combination of both. So for all the kids out there that aren't on the national team, that's okay. Use it as motivation to get to there. And I always say that if you are lucky enough to be playing on a national team or a regional team or making some sort of all-star team, just know that you're making that and use that as motivation to continue that success. Because a lot of times I find that some of the kids that I've played with really, almost got too ahead of themselves at times. And I was part of that. I got cut from residency, which I don't think some of you guys know, but there was a program and I got cut from the national team because I thought I was too good. I thought I was the best player and I thought I was so ready and all these different things. And guess what? I got cut just like that. And I thought, this was the end of my career. I thought I was going to be bad. I thought I was going to have to try to play basketball again, which clearly I wasn't good at. And eventually I realized that I had to reset my goals and say, you know what, like use that as motivation to continue. So it was definitely the national team helped, but also the club aspect helped in playing for PA Classics. And I played against Red Bulls. I played against DC United and a few other clubs in the Northeast coast of the country to help get that exposure. And I didn't play for those big clubs. They had the crest, the uniforms were free and their travel was free. And my mom, was working jobs to try to pay for that. And they didn't, but I used that as motivation to try to, pay back my family and to show that I am good enough. And I hope that some of the kids out there, whether they play for whatever club it might be, want to show the people that are at those higher levels that they are good enough. Because I know there's a lot of good players come out of Minnesota. Because you brought up Shattuck, right?
Yep.
They were recruiting me, and I remember I've been lucky enough to play with two of the premier guys that have come out of that school, and I know that they produce some good players. And if you don't play at that school, maybe that's a goal of yours to get to that point. So I know that there's different ways that you can reach the goals in which you want.
Okay, so like you said, you were cut, you were trying to prove points, that kind of thing. How much work did you put in yourself just at home? Because it's like you can't be at training with your team every single day. So I'm guessing you probably had to go do something on your own as well.
A lot. So I was fortunate enough to go to basically like Shattuck, but it was in Florida. It was called IMG Academies. And I don't know if I'm not saying it right, you can correct me. But I was fortunate enough to go to IMG Academies, and a lot of it was we'd have school in the morning, we'd have a training session at 2 or 3 o'clock in the afternoon. And then a lot of times we had a lifting session at night, which for me was big because I was super small. Up until my senior year of high school, I was basically 5'5", 135 pounds, which is not very big. And then I hit a growth spurt and I was trying to lift and bulk up because I wasn't very big and I was playing center back. And I was this guy who was super small, but I had to kind of, figure things out. And along with that, we used to play these like pickup games on this small patch of turf, probably 30 by 50, like a really small patch of turf. We put two little mini goals, and if not, they'd be broken. And it was just 2 cones, and you have to hit it below the knees. And it was a lot of these like pickup games, these street ball games that were better because they were competitive, and there was no coaches out there. So you would have to coach your teammates, and you would eventually learn that, if a player wasn't doing what you expected them to do, you would have to tell them. So a lot of communication was born there. And I remember those games that we used to play were so competitive to the point where at times guys would get, separated because the fouls would come in. And that's really what helped shape me as much of a player as trainings did, because those games where you're with your friends it wasn't a street, but it was a small turf area. We had no goals. We played with a wall that was a fence, and there was a concrete wall. And that's really where, you saw a lot of players develop their footwork and their work ethic and their communication and that kind of stuff. So it definitely just wasn't on the field stuff. It was a lot of on that off the pitch stuff as well.
Yeah, that's huge. That's awesome to hear that it's just something competitive at all times. And you guys are just doing kind of that street ball stuff. That's always a lot of fun.
Definitely. It's the best.
As far as the recruiting process for college, we'll kind of move on to that a little bit more. Like going to Akron, how was that, like, top team in the country at the time, coming in right around that time? What was that process like to be able to choose Akron, or did you have other opportunities to go elsewhere that you were potentially looking at?
Yeah, I was getting a few letters here and there, but I was also doing the whole, send out emails to coaches and everything like that. I had a giant little 2-paragraph thing. I'd have to make sure I put the coach's name and the right school, because if you don't want to email West Virginia and then put the Penn State's coach name down, that really doesn't look good. That's a quick way to to make sure you don't end up on their list. So it's little details like that. As someone just asked, I'm a defender, and I played center back and outside back growing up. So if that gives any context to what I was doing, but make sure if you send out emails, you send the right alignment of stuff, because you never want to mix those two up, or it could be a little bit difficult for you. But so I was sending out emails, and I had an ID camp where a bunch of players go to a giant camp and some coaches come and they watch. And I was getting recruited from West Virginia and Penn State and Akron, and it was a pretty easy decision, I would say, to go to Akron, because The coach basically came, and the assistant coaches came up to me and basically said, we wanted to make you the quarterback of the team. So I played center back at the time. And a lot of times if you look at some of the better teams, the goalie gets the ball and he plays it short and the center back gets it and kind of starts the play. So they wanted me to be the quarterback of the team, which I felt really cool because they were the only team that gave me that responsibility. And I was really lucky that Akron turned out to be very good. I only went on one visit, and I didn't go on a few like a bunch of other people were going. A few of my friends went on 4 or 5 visits. I only went on one, and I think my mom really wanted to go and really wanted me to go to Akron. It was a 5-hour drive from home, and I was close but not too close, and I was really lucky to have a really good coach, Caleb Porter, who's coaching Columbus Crew in the final tomorrow or on this weekend against Seattle, be my coach, and I had some really good players there that made me look a lot better than maybe I am. So I give a lot of credit to those guys.
So, obviously we actually did a college kind of recruiting kind of night as a club on the last couple Monday nights. And one of the big things is if you guys want to get recruited, you have to be the ones kind of reaching out to colleges as well.
Have to.
And, it's one of those things that it's great to hear someone saying they're sending out just tons and tons of emails out, trying to get their name out there and trying to get noticed. So for those of you looking to get into colleges, there you go. You just heard it from Zarek himself. So
I would say that I had a template. It was just, you work with your parents and you write 2 paragraphs. Hi, I'm here. I'm in this position. I've done this. And then you kind of talk about yourself as a player. And I just copy and pasted that. It wasn't anything crazy, but that starts the conversation with the assistant coach. I imagine that's probably who you'd send it to. And that starts a conversation. And a lot of times they won't necessarily even respond, but they still might be like, okay, cool, we'll put you down. And coaches won't talk to other coaches about players. Why? Because they want to have first dibs, right? So just because you send it out to 10 different teams, it means that you might get 3 responses, but I guarantee you the majority will write your name down. And then when they go and they'll have it written down and say, cool, we have this note and this and that, and we'll go from there. So I sent out a bunch, and and who knows what it led to, but I still had 4 or 5 colleges contact me because you had sent that out. And I know Penn State was definitely one of those, and I know West Virginia was too, because that was the school that I liked as well a lot.
Yeah, and I mean, at the end of the day, you're only going to choose one school, so that's all you need is that one to bite on those emails, and you're good to go. So, what would you say the biggest difference between like playing like the youth sport to the college level?
The biggest difference for me was the physicality, I would say, is when you go from, so for example, let's say you're in middle school, which in most states is 6th, 7th, or 8th grade, right? When you go from 6th, 7th, 8th grade, let's say you make varsity as a freshman, you're then suddenly playing with people who are 3 to 4 years older than you. So they're going to be taller and bigger and stronger and probably faster. So when you go from being a senior in college to playing with college seniors, it's the same exact jump. So the initial transition for me was the size of these guys. Like, these are guys that have been in the gym for 4 years, and I know, guys, listen, I know I'm a big boy right here, but it's a big change when you go from middle school to high school or high school to college, just because people are bigger, stronger, faster. That's pretty much it. So you have to get to the point where if you can't compete physically, like myself and like my dog over here, when you can't compete physically with some of these guys, you have to outthink them. And for me, that was something that I had to figure out very quickly, and something that when I was younger, I had to immediately transition and do, because I was always 5'5", 135 playing center back against big dudes. And I couldn't run with them. I couldn't outmuscle them. So I had to try to think 2 and 3 steps ahead. Like, where's the ball going to be played? Where's his run going to be? So that helped me out a lot compared to some of my other friends who were bigger and stronger. So eventually when my size kicked in, I felt like I had a step above. So for me, the size and the strength and the speed, and I know you'd probably agree, is the biggest change from when you're a college or high school senior. Suddenly you're playing with guys who are 21, 22 years old, and you're 18, and it's just, they've been there. So that's for me been the biggest change.
Massive. Yeah, absolutely massive. I remember showing up my senior year, I had a full sleeve, and like with my size compared to some of the freshmen that came in, they were just like jaws just dropping. it was always fun to be that senior doing that.
Love it.
But as far as going, jumping under the, obviously then the professional level, describe to me how that kind of, door unlocked again for you. Cause again, we weren't national team. We were playing at a top college. And then obviously then we started thinking, okay, professional is, a real opportunity for myself. At what point did it kind of click and you're like, yep, this is what I'm doing?
Yeah, I didn't even think about myself necessarily as a professional soccer player just yet. I remember after my freshman year when we lost in a final, that I was told by someone, hey, there was pro coaches thought you were pretty good. And I was like, oh, like I didn't even think I was like that. And that's kind of when I started thinking like maybe I could do this for a living. And then I played my second year, and I remember we were fortunate enough to win a national championship, and I went to, and I was thinking, man, maybe I should go pro. I'm not sure, like if I'm even good enough at this point. Like I think I'm good, but I don't know if I'm really that good. And I remember I went to go talk to my college coach, and I said, hey, like, coach, I'm thinking about it. And he goes, stop. I just want to let you know, like, you have my blessing to go pro. I've already given your scholarship away to another player, so you have to leave anyway. And I said, okay, well, I guess that makes my decision pretty easy then.
Yeah.
So it was pretty much at that point that my coach, kind of thrust, when, sink or swim, they throw you in the pool and said, hey, you're going, I think you're good enough. And I think this is good for your family. And then you kind of have to figure it out and go from there. And like I said, I was really lucky to have some really good players around me that probably made me look a little better than I was at the time.
So I mean, you get thrust into it. How'd you go about like doing it? Were you getting drafted, or is it something where you signed as a free agent, or went on trials, that kind of thing, or is it or was it that whole draft system the way the MLS is set up currently?
This was the old draft. This was the old days where the draft was on ESPN and it was pretty cool. And I was really lucky to be drafted number 4th overall. And it was an incredible moment where I got to give a speech. Of course, I'm nervous. I'm a young rookie. I'm sweating. So it was a really incredible, memorable thing for me. And I'm very fortunate that it was in Baltimore, which is an hour drive from my house in Pennsylvania. So my whole family could be there, which was great. And it was an incredible experience. And I don't think I fully understood what was going to happen because, you get drafted in early January, then in 2 weeks you're in preseason with my roommate at the time had played in a World Cup, and he was a professional for 15, 16 years. And immediately I'm sitting with this guy who, played against Ghana in the World Cup like a year before I met him. And I'm sitting there going like, this is just like, I am way in over my head. And the interesting part is when you go from college to pros, not only is it more physically demanding because, again, you take that step, but now it's players are developing here. In college, not every player develops more mentally because you have school and they don't put, the emphasis on what's going on in their games and stuff like that. But I remember when I took that step, I realized that guys were physically stronger and faster than me, but they were also, a lot of guys were smarter than me too. So you really have to work on a lot of different aspects of your game. And I remember I was in the get big group my rookie year just to try to put on even more muscle, bench press and all these crazy things to try to get as quickly as I could higher, because the mental aspect was something that was going to slowly happen over time with experience.
Mm-hmm. And it was one of those things. I know you've kind of bounced around the league a little bit as far as some of the different teams, and even going down to like a USL team,
Mm-hmm.
coming back up, that kind of thing. Does that take a little bit of a mental toll on you, or like having to go back and forth maybe from a USL team to that first team to, hey, I just got traded to another team? What kind of goes through your head when that kind of stuff kind of happens?
Yeah, definitely. And as I spoke about earlier, I got cut from the national team when I was 17, and that was really hard for me to figure out and understand, and really deal with mentally, because I thought I was so good, and then suddenly you're not as good as you think. And that was really tough for me. And then when I was in Portland in 2017, I was playing in Norway for a little bit and came back, and I was playing a few games, but I wasn't getting as many games as I thought I would in Portland. And then suddenly the coach wanted me to go play 2 or 3 games with the USL team. And it was one of
things where it was, can you hear me?
Yeah, we're good. It kind of cut out a little bit there, but I can hear you now just fine.
Yeah, sorry. I think my headphones died. As I said, there were some technical difficulties. But I was, the coach wanted me to get some minutes, so I went down to a USL team and I played a few of those games. And it's one of these things where you go through tough moments because you're not making the 18, you're not starting. And of course, everybody believes in themselves and they think that they should be starting and they should be playing. But sometimes the coaches make that tough decision for you. But it's one of these situations where, again, instead of letting something negative happen to you, you have to use it as motivation to get back into the group. So when I was not sent down, but when I was, asked to play with the USL team, I went there for about 2 or 3 or 4 games. And then I remember I went on to play 20 more games with the first team and started and played in 20 more games because I used that as motivation. And a lot of times when bad things happen to people in terms of their career, whether they get cut from a team, whether you don't play, whether you don't get as many minutes, you get injured, no matter what, you can use that as motivation, or you can use it to be a little bit of a downfall. So for me, I always wanted to use those things as motivation to keep myself going and to keep myself pushing as much as I could to try to be a better player, and not to use it as a downfall, because it's easy to get down on yourself when you don't make a team or when you don't score a goal. It's really easy for those things to happen. But I always try to be cup half full as opposed to cup half empty, and just use use that strength to try to push through, and know that, when you put in the hard work, my mom always told me hard work pays off, and that's something I live by today.
I like it. So, as far as getting to that professional level, what would be maybe a couple things that you would say to a young kid that they need to really focus on, whether it is the tactical aspects, the technical aspects, just the mindset in general? What would be some things that, if that's what their goal is, to be, hey, I want to be like Zarek, I want to be playing on the national team, I want to get to that professional level? What would be like the big main points that you would say that they'd have to have?
That's tough. I would first off say that you don't have to be on the national team. That is, I was lucky enough to be there. You do not have to be there. You can look on the TV. It's halftime of the full team. Half those guys weren't national team guys when they were younger. They just developed at the right point. And they trusted that and they put in the work. So I was very lucky, but that is not by me the meter for anything. I would say that first off, you have to enjoy the process. And I know it's an interesting way of saying it, but we're all going to have really high moments and we're going to have really low moments. We're going to score the game-winning goal and it's going to be the best day of our life. And there's other times where we might not even play. And that's really difficult. But if you can keep a decent mindset when things are high and when things are low, that's going to be fantastic. And practicing with your team is not enough, typically. Practicing just 3 or 4 times a week with your club team won't be enough to get you to that next level. You have to enjoy putting in the work. I see some of my teammates now in the off season, working on free kicks, working on dribbling, things like that. For me, I'm working on, just being as fit as possible and getting stronger, because I know that will help me. And everybody knows where their weaknesses are in their game or their body or whatever it might be. So finding those weaknesses and working on it is something that's big. And for me, I was very small, like I said, when I was older. So one thing I always wanted to do was work on my long balls with both my right and my left foot. And to this day, that's one of the strong aspects of my game, is hitting long balls, because I used to go out in my backyard. I used to have a goal that was 5 feet high by 8 feet long. And I'd line up 6 balls and I'd hit 6 balls with my right foot, 6 balls with my left foot. And I would continually just go back and forth, back and forth. No one's watching. I'm in the backyard by myself. I'm not posting it on Instagram. I'm not doing it on Twitter. Those things didn't exist. But I was doing that because those things for me were important to my game. And when I played for the Portland Timbers for 4 years, I ended up playing more games at left back than I did at right back. And I'm right-footed because of the days and the hours that I put in consistently in my backyard, kicking with my left foot. I was more advanced, and that allowed me to play more. So whether you're a forward and you want to shoot well with both feet, whether you're a left mid and you want to play left and right mid, same thing with defending. or obviously even a goalkeeper, whatever it might be. You have weaknesses and certain things in your game that it might not always be easy, because I know that I wish soccer was like basketball or baseball, where you can have a machine pitch you 100 balls and you can hit it and be so easy. But it's soccer, you have a bag of 10 balls and you kick them, 3 in the bushes, 1 goes, 5 in the net, 1 hits the crossbar, and you have to go chase them. And it's annoying and it stinks. But trust me, those things pay off. And I see guys doing it to this day, and it's not the sport where, again, like you can shoot in basketball and it rebounds for you and it comes right back out. It's easy. Our sport kind of isn't fun like that. But the people who put up with those tough times and those difficult conditions, so to speak, when you kick one and you have to go into a river, or for me, it was kick it into a forest and I had to get poison ivy, getting the ball out, trying to find it. Those things will pay off. And I promise you that it will pay off.
And you being the small guy out there, I mean, it sounds a lot like what I was growing up as well, the small guy who had to basically overcome the bigger guys. And if you're not technically the greatest player because of your size, is that like you kind of mentioned before, that tactical side is going to be huge, as far as you're just going to outsmart everyone else. How do you think you came about becoming such an intelligent player? As far as, was it studying game films, watching professional teams, that kind of thing, or breaking down your own game? How would you describe as far as getting that, tactical savvy?
1 sec. My phone is about to die again. These technical conditions, I am extremely sorry. Let me quickly load this up on my computer and we'll be good to go.
Cool.
Hello?
Hey.
Can you hear me?
Hey, Zarek. I can. Yeah, we're good.
Perfect.
Here we go. I just got to find you here.
You were asking about tactics, right?
Good. We're good. So, so I was saying, like, I was a small player like you growing up. So you had to rely a lot on your tactical awareness and smarts, intelligence that way. How did you become so tactically smart when it came to the game? Was it watching, professional teams play? Was it, kind of analyzing your game, or asking lots of questions to coaches? How was it that you became such an intelligent player, so that way when your size and that technical aspect caught up to that, you were able to be as, of a good of a player as you were?
Well, first off, thank you. But secondly, the thing is, I will say that I didn't have the amount of resources like you kids have. You have internet. I had dial-up internet, which most of you guys probably don't know. You guys have Facebook, Twitter. You can watch Messi videos and YouTube. These things have been incredible resources. But the biggest thing for me, and I encourage all you guys to do this, is play with older players. And I know like Brian, I know you did this too, because growing up, we didn't have, if you were better than some of the kids your age, you would play with older players. And a lot of the things where you learned on the job. I didn't have, again, I couldn't go to YouTube and watch Messi or Iniesta or whatever, Luka Modric pass the ball and watch a 15-minute clip and watch what he does. So I was forced to play with younger kids or older kids, and I was the young guy. I was 3-4 years younger than all the older kids that I played with. And a lot of it was learning on the fly and asking a lot of questions. And I was probably viewed as a little kid who wouldn't stop talking at times. But ultimately I asked a lot of questions about, hey, you made this pass at this moment. Like, what did you look at? What did you see? And they would go, oh yeah, I saw that your body position looked like this, so I did that. And it's a lot of different questions that you ask a lot of older players. And to the point where I still do with all my coaches. One of my coaches for the Dynamo played in 2 World Cups, I think, with Pablo Mastroeni, one of the best players in MLS history. And I ask him so many questions about how to be a better leader and what he sees in certain situations. And don't be afraid to ask any questions, because what might seem very simple to the person you're asking to will be very important to you. And I remember, and I'll give you one example, was my first day as a professional trainee. I'll never forget this. I was playing with a guy named Jimmy Conrad. He played in a World Cup. He won a few MLS Cups. He didn't pass me a ball. Very simple ball. He didn't pass it to me. I was playing right back, and he was playing center back. And he got it. And he was dribbling forward. And he looked at me, and he didn't pass it to me, and he played this way. So after training, I said, hey, Jimmy, like, don't worry. Like, you can pass me the ball in that situation. You know, it's okay. And he goes, I didn't want to pass you the ball because you didn't have any options. And I remember sitting there and like that blew my mind, because for him to say I didn't have any options meant that he was thinking about what I would do with the ball before I even got it. And that was something where I asked this simple question. And now I don't play a ball to somebody without thinking about what they might do. And at times I've had players tell me, hey, you know, you can do this. And my rebuttal is, well, what would you do with the ball? And then a lot of times they don't have an answer to that. And then I go, well, that's why I didn't play you the ball. So for me, it's asking questions, playing with people who are older than you. And then a lot of times it's playing with people who are better than you. When you play with really good players and they might get past you once or twice or three times, you learn what you can do to make sure they don't do that. And as an outside back, I've gotten megged, I've gotten beat and just, you know, crushed so many different ways that you eventually learn little things that you can do to try to make it a little bit easier for yourself against some of these guys. I see a Barcelona jersey out there and all these different things. So when you can watch, you know, Messi play and Neymar play, and obviously Neymar's not there anymore, but when you can watch these guys play, you see little things that they do, and that's amazing. You try to learn as much as possible.
I like it. So I got one more question, then we'll open it up to the kids to ask some questions for you. Yeah, would you know, being at the Dynamo, I'm sure you got guys coming in from, you know, internationally. You get Division I guys. You might even have some guys coming in from like a trial trying to earn contracts. You might have Division III guys even that might come in out of trying to get contracts, stuff like that. Would you say it really matters if it's a D1 or a D3 or a D2 or whatever it is, if that's the route they're going?
No, I don't ask where people come from to judge them. I ask because I want to know where they, you know, their history. I say, hey, where you been? Okay, cool. I went to Messiah, like you said, D3, one of the best D3 schools in the country, from Pennsylvania. Oh, that's really cool. I'm from Pennsylvania. It's not, how many goals did you score? Like, no, it doesn't. For me, it doesn't matter. When you go out, you just want to play with good players and you treat everybody the same. And when you're out there playing, it's competitive. So at times things might get a little fiery, but ultimately everybody's trying to win. And as long as you have good intentions, what they're doing, those things happen. And for me, I don't care if somebody's from Madagascar, Australia, Japan, America, you know, we're all on the same team. We're all playing together. And that's what's most important. And you have to figure out ways in which you can communicate to people. And that's the fun part. That's why, you know, I enjoy playing, is to, you know, when I can speak very, very bad French to my center back in Portland, or I can go to Norway and try to speak a little bit of Norwegian to the guys on the pitch to try to make it easier. Or I speak Spanish. For me, that's very fun. And that's what ultimately makes our sport the best, is because there's players from everywhere. And if you look at the NBA, you know, 98% of the guys on one team will be American, if not 100. Whereas if you look at our team, we had guys from Uruguay, Argentina, Slovenia, America. We had guys from El Salvador and Honduras and wherever it might be. So that's what, to me, what makes our sport great. So I encourage people to just, you know, embrace where everyone came from and enjoy it, because we're very lucky to be playing in a sport where it doesn't matter where you came from. You know, you could ask Neymar where he grew up. You think they asked him where he was growing up when he was playing in these clubs? No, he played in the street, and he says that openly, and that's why he was so good. Like, it's not a club team, that's not a college, that's just him going out there and doing his thing, which is what makes everything fantastic.
Yeah, so yeah, you know, moral of the story is if you're good enough, you'll get noticed and you'll be playing. Doesn't matter.
And I can speak to that because I know guys that, you know, the amount of players that I've played with that didn't play professionally or didn't play national team. They didn't even get recruited to D1 schools. The guy, my teammate who I golfed with yesterday, who plays for Dynamo, played with Dynamo for years, he had to walk on, which means when you walk on, it means you pay and you fully pay to go to a school. And he had to try out for the college team because he didn't even get a guaranteed spot. And he ended up being, I think, the third goalkeeper his first year, the second goalkeeper his second year, and eventually became the starting goalkeeper his last 2 years, and played 2 years of college, and then eventually became a professional goalkeeper. So it doesn't matter where you're at right now, what club you're at. For keep going and keep practicing and keep putting in the work. That hard work pays off in one way or another.
I like it. Well, let's open it up to the kids. Looks like you got a couple questions here in the public kind of chat room. So, guys, if you have any questions, Zarek, feel free to shoot it out there.
You guys can ask me anything. I try to be as much of an open book and fun and answer questions and make fun of myself, whatever it might be. But I've seen a few. Someone asked me what I'm a defender. I play center back, left back, and right back. I've played for 5 professional teams. So I got drafted to Chivas USA, which doesn't exist anymore. If any of you guys know who that is, congratulations. It was LAFC before that. And then I got picked up by Montreal in an expansion draft. And then I played in Norway for 3 years. I played in Portland, the Timbers, for 4 years. And then I just played for the Dynamo this past year. I've been playing, how many years? I've been playing soccer since I've been 5 years old. The first team I played for was the Red Raspberries, was a guys and a girls team. I started becoming serious. I think it was when I was 13 years old, when I started traveling, like state team, driving an hour, because my mom was basically saying, listen, I don't want to drive an hour and, rush back from work if this isn't going to be something that you really, really want to do. My favorite drill to do, I don't score goals anymore. I grew up playing in the midfield, so I used to like scoring drills. Now I don't do that, which stinks. But I would say my favorite drill is crossing and finishing. It's very simple, but when you take it seriously, it's fantastic. When someone plays it out wide and you have the midfielder play it wide and the 2 forwards go in and you cross it, and hopefully the forwards can score and make you look good, like I always say. My favorite team I've played on, that's really difficult. I would say my favorite team I played on was probably my college team. And the only reason I say that is because when you're not getting paid, you played because you love the game. You genuinely love it and you want to be there. Like, you guys all love the game. It's fantastic. Sometimes, as professionals, sometimes people, they make money and it changes them at times, sadly. So for me, college, definitely, because it was so amazing and organic and it was so cool. Someone said, when you're going through high school and college, were you still focused on education? I was definitely focused on education, because in college, if you don't get a good enough grades, you can't play. That's the rule. Brian knows that too. If you don't get good grades, you cannot play in the games. And I know some of my good friends were messing around in school and ended up not being able to play. And then you have to switch that out. And I remember I left college after my second year, and I promised my mom I would finish school. And it took me 10 years of online school, 8 years of online school, but I got my degree and I have my college degree up there that I bring with me everywhere. My favorite memory out of the USA, playing with the youth national teams, probably we played Mexico right before we did Olympic qualifying, and we beat Mexico 2-0 in Texas, and it was a sold out stadium, and that was really cool because that's such a big rivalry. So that was amazing. Someone said, how long did I train every day? I probably trained for an hour and a half with my club team, and then I would come back and train for an hour by myself. And like I said, a lot of it was some dribbling drills I used to do. But mainly for me, it was passing. It was trying to pass the ball into the side netting, because I wasn't scoring goals. So I had to try to create drills in my head. So what I would do was I would kick the ball up in the air and I would trap it. And then I would try to take a good touch and pass it into the corner. And I would try to do that a lot. And then I would try to hit long balls. So those few things were some of the things that I did the most. And it says, how many hours did you practice today? Probably, like I said, an hour and a half with my club team every other day, or 3 times a week. And then I'd practice myself at least probably an hour. And I said, how do you get noticed before high school? And that was probably between before high school, it was ODP. There isn't much, to be completely honest, to get noticed. I don't know, Brian, how you, but at least in Pennsylvania, there's not much you can do in middle school. It's just trying to get better.
Not much. I mean, really, the big thing is on your own, as best as you can. Get as best as you can on your own, playing the clubs, and then it's one of those things. Getting into an environment that provides you the opportunities to get noticed. Really,
yeah, of course.
Whether it's you're traveling to tournaments, whether it's getting your videotaped, and so you can send it to the college coaches, or being able to get seen.
Yeah, of course. And it says, what's my favorite move to get around players? I, as a defender, I don't do it much, but the one that I use to create space is using a Croix. So essentially a Croix is when you would go to pass it, but instead of kicking it forward, you use the inside of your foot to scoop it behind you. So a lot of times it's used to change directions. But for me, that's how I try to get a defender to go here, and then I Croix it and I go backwards. Getting better with aerial balls, the biggest thing I could say is working on timing. And I know Brian would probably say is the ball's in the air. You can either jump where you get an inch off the ground or where you get 3 feet off the ground. So you want to be as high as you can to reach the ball at the highest point possibly. And let's go through a few of these. Let's go through all of them. I got plenty of time. And then let's keep going. Here you go. Who stuck by your side throughout your soccer career? Who believed in you the most? That's a big one. My family, but I would say my wife. She was with me. We've been together for 7 years now. So she's been through, actually longer than that. 7 years now. 2 years in Norway, 4 years in Portland, and now she moved me. So she's moved with me 2 or 3 times now, which has been incredible. So I'm just really, really, honored that I have my wife who's been with me. We moved, here at the beginning of the year, and you guys know how hard it's been with everything going on. So to have her, quit her job and be by my side has been amazing. So my wife's the best. My favorite position, personally, I like playing holding mid. I grew up playing holding mid, and then eventually I was up top because I was really fast, and then I wasn't fast anymore, so I went to holding mid. I like it because you can play midfield, so you can play long balls from the side, but you can also organize the team. It's my favorite. So guys like Conte is fantastic. Sergio Busquets is really good. You look at Xabi Alonso, guys like that were the players that were, some of the best holding mids. Patrick Vieira, you guys probably don't know. Things like that were incredible to me. Those guys were amazing. My inspiration when I was younger was Allen Iverson, who's a basketball player, but I would say if we're going to go soccer route, it was my brother. My brother played for the national team growing up. My brother went to college at Wake Forest, and I wanted to copy him and do everything he did. So he was easily my most influential person growing up. I just loved everything he did and wanted to be just like him, and still do. And he said, how do you know you wanted to play defense? Here's a good story. I didn't want to play defense. Guess what? I still don't want to play defense, but it is what it is. I wish I could score goals, but I'm not that good at that. But so basically, if you guys haven't been able to tell, like, I talk a good chunk. And I remember we were playing with the ODP team, and our center back got injured. And the coach came up to me and he goes, hey, you've been playing center mid. Can you play center back for us? And I said, I've never played center back. He goes, well, listen, you talk a lot. He goes, how about you try talking on the field? And he goes, organize everybody in front of you. Make sure the ball doesn't get to you. And that's all I ask. And we won the game. And I remember he goes, what do you think? And I was like, that's not bad. And he goes, you're going to play center back for me from now on. Just organize everything in front of you. Pass, when you can see passes because you're midfielder. And organize the back line, and that's all we need from you to do. And that's how I play defense now. As much as I don't like it at times, that's why I play defense, because I talk a lot. Have I had any serious injuries? Let's see if I can show you this one. This probably might be gross. You see that? That line? I don't know if you can see it.
It looks good, Zarek. I see it. I can see that.
That is my torn Achilles. I tore my Achilles in 2014. I'm not going to go into it much. I hope it never happens to any of you guys. It was a really bad injury, pretty freak accident, but it's all good. My favorite soccer team is Fulham. None of you guys know what that is. Fulham. They play in the EPL. They're basically one of the worst teams in the EPL. But growing up, Fulham they were a lot better than they were now, and they had a bunch of Americans on the team. Clint Dempsey, Eddie Lewis, Brian McBride. They had a lot of Bocanegra played there. They had a bunch of Americans, so it was really cool for me to see a team in Europe that had a bunch of Americans and was doing well. So I really loved that. If not, AC Milan, because I used to play with them in FIFA. How do you train now? We train normally. We just get tested a lot. So our team is completely normal, but we have a lot of protocols. We have to wear masks around the locker room and stuff like that. But we get tested 3 or 4 times a week, and that's why we can train and be somewhat normal. Someone said, did I ever go to South America and play with pro teams there? I played against youth teams in South America. So with the regional team, we went to Argentina and we played Argentinian national team. We played Newell's Old Boys and a few of the clubs down there, and they were really good. And I think the biggest thing that those the teams in other countries have, it's not that they have that we don't have, it's but their life is in Europe and in South America and all these other countries, they don't have as good as facilities as we do. We have beautiful turf fields and everything like that. So guess what? When the ball rolls on turf, it's perfect, smooth, it's easy. When you play in other countries, they don't have turf fields. They have really bad grass fields. They play on gravel or the street. And guess what? The ball bounces, right? And any of you guys, is it really easy to pass a ball when it's rolling slowly on the ground? Perfect. Yeah, easy. Anybody can do that. If it's bouncing, it's really hard. So if you think about when the U.S. didn't make the World Cup in 2016, the biggest thing the fans kept saying was, oh, the field in Trinidad and Tobago was terrible. It was awful. Well, for us, it was bad. For everyone else, no one else complained about it, but we did, because our fields are pristine and perfect. So a lot of the players, I talk about Neymar, they play with a ball that's not even a ball. It's yarn and socks, and that's what they play with growing up. And if you can juggle that, a soccer ball is easy. If you can play where there's gravel and turf and rocks, and suddenly you go to play at Barcelona or PSG with the field's carpet, it's going to be easy. So for me, it was always amazing to see those players be able to play on whatever surface it might be. It said, how did I do school and soccer at the same time? Was I would dedicate 2 to 3 hours a day to make sure that was my school time. I would go and train, and then I would go to class, and then I would come back and eat dinner, and I would say, okay, cool. From 8 to 9 or 7 to 8, that's my school time, and I have to get it done. Because again, like I said, if you didn't perform well in the classroom, you can't play. Someone said, why do I like soccer? Soccer to me is like chess. There's a lot of people on the field and there's a lot of moving parts, but when you can control the people around you, it's like a chess game. And I find that really cool. I also like how it's just the ultimate team sport. I don't know if I could play tennis or golf. I love golf, but I don't know if I could play those sports because everything is on one player. If it's a team sport, that's really fun, personalities and everything like that. So it's fantastic. I wear number 4. And what skills you need to reach the college level? I would say that, to reach college, you have to try to be as well-rounded as possible. Listen, first and foremost, if you can score 3 goals a game, you'll be a pro next week. Just going to throw that out there. So for all the people who can't do that, like myself and others, try to be a good passer, try to be a good defender, always be a good teammate, because trust me, that goes a really long way. And like I said, communicate if possible, make your teammates better, because that always goes really far as well. What drill can you do as a defender? It depends. I think you should try to work on defending 1v1. Have one of your friends who's an attacker dribble at you. That's always good practice. Cross, work on long balls. Those ththings are great. What we say is
step over, push, go, right?
Step over, push, go. It's that easy. If you're
Exactly.
awake, just listen to Brian on that one. It's pretty easy. And then we'll do a few more questions here. What we say is a great winger role model. I personally like, for me, I like wingers that play both sides. So if you look at Neymar is fantastic, incredible going forward. You see the goal he scored today? Did any of you guys see that? He megged somebody and then put it in the upper corner. Like, are you kidding me? That's unbelievable. It's on ESPN. Like, it's incredible. But he doesn't always defend as hard as he plays offense. And as an outside back and a defender, that's tough for me. So I like guys
that are willing to run forward and shoot and score and cross the ball, but also run back immediately and try to help me play defense. So for me, a lot of times I would look at guys, like I looked at like I have all these old players. I'm thinking like for me, like when Alexis Sanchez was at Arsenal, I love the way he played because he was up and down, he ran everywhere, he was fantastic. You look at Ribéry, you guys don't even know who that might be, but like there's a few of these old guys, like a lot of old wingers that would just go back and forth and run and do all the work, all the hard work. Back with Pedro, Guardado, these guys that play both sides of the ball. There's a few special players who don't have to do it, but for me, everybody has to defend. Unless you're Messi or Ronaldo, cool, no problem. But guess what? There's like 2 of those guys in the world. So the rest of us, we all have to play defense, at least in my eyes. I haven't met Messi. Sorry. Let's do a few more. Some people, why but Fulham? Yes, really Fulham. LOL. Ethan. And then we'll do my worst injury is my Achilles. That's not good. My favorite soccer drill. I think I talked about that one. Do I have any regret? Do I like Quintero? Quintero's an incredible player. Do I have any regrets? No, I think everything happens for a reason. Even getting injured, everything happens for a reason, and you have to try to turn all these negatives into positives. Trust me. Have I started against Minnesota United? Yes. And guess what? I lost twice to them last year. 2 consecutive games with the Timbers. We lost 2-1 and 1-0. Kevin Molino is really good. So is Christian Ramirez. So is Quintero. So is Reynoso. Those guys are really good. Just going to throw it out there. And their goalie was really good as well. My grades were never low because I was always too afraid. My mom would always come for me. And I also got little like $5 an A. So I remember I used to try to be really good about that. And I would say the last one here, I guess, last one here that I see is, or we'll do 2, the best drills for mids. Mids do everything. So you can literally practice anything. You can practice shooting, you can practice passing, you can practice defending, dribbling. But I would say if you're a midfielder, do everything. Don't just shoot, don't just pass. Make sure you practice everything because you want to be a well-rounded midfielder. And then the last one is, did you have any financial struggles? That's a really interesting question by Mikey and really, really high up. But I would say, thankfully, I've been really lucky to not. And the reason is I was always surrounded by good people. I think I played with some really good players that made me look good. And I also, when I went pro, I talked to my parents and I had a financial person help me out to make good decisions. And I was always really lucky to be surrounded by a lot of really smart people to make me, to put me in a really good situation to succeed. And I would say, hopefully we have 69 pros on this call, and hopefully you guys can all go do that. I would literally go and hopefully you guys practice, your butts off, all go to college and then all become pros and then make a lot of money and then hopefully talk to somebody to help invest it well. So then you're going to have a great future. That would be fantastic. And then, okay, we got one more last one, a short center back. I was a short center back. So for me, it would be trying to be a step ahead of the forwards. You can't compete physically, right? But if you know where the ball's going to go, be on the right side of the forward always. And then also try to read the play in front of you. And again, allow your midfielders to put pressure on the ball so that the ball can't necessarily go through lines and make you get into a physical race. And a center mid, again, play everything, do everything, dribble, pass, practice everything. Don't just shoot PKs and free kicks. Like that's one aspect of the game. Work on your passing, work on your dribbling, work on your defending.
I think that's all the questions there, Zarek. We ran through you were running through it. I want to thank you, Zarek, so much for coming out here and talking to the guys and the girls. And I think we learned a ton of information. And I know myself, if I was a kid, I would absolutely, be totally sparked by this and be out in my garage right now or something, kicking a ball.
Hopefully,
it works. So hopefully it works for these guys. So thanks again for doing this, and best of luck next year. I know I'll be at the game. Hopefully we'll have fans. I'll be in the stands watching you play. So
well, again, thank you to everybody. I really appreciate everyone coming on and taking the time. I know it's Well, it's 8 o'clock, so it's not crazy late, but I'm happy everyone came on and sat through it. I talk a little bit, but hopefully it helped. And, I'd love to do it again. Obviously we met once prior down here, but again, I hope to see you guys when we play at Minnesota. Hopefully you guys are there. Hopefully we don't lose again like we always do when I go there. I think I've played in Minnesota. I think I've played in Minnesota 5 times in my career, and I've had 4 losses and 1 tie.
That's Wonderwall for you.
Okay. Let's not start with the Wonderwall. We don't have to do that. But thank you guys so much. I really appreciate it. It was a lot of fun. And if we want to do this again another time with a group, you guys let me know.
Perfect. That sounds awesome, Zarek. Again, thanks for taking the time again. And have a good rest of the night, all right?
Of course.
Thank you.
Good night, everybody. Take care. Thanks, guys.
Thank you.
See you. Bye-bye.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Bye-bye.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Adios.
Thank you.